Hello everyone, Johnny Man here, and today we're continuing to learn Japanese with Kirby's Adventure. Last time we played part of level 2, so this time we'll continue from there. First we'll check the remaining ability in the museum there. Then start with stage, if I recall correctly, 4, and then continue from there. But first, since we don't have more kanji to study, we can continue to check the intro of the game. Here I saved it. We were, not that one, should be around here, yes. We stopped with, well, not this, I think around here. Yeah, here, because we have seen that the commands up to how you get copy ability. And so now we start with some examples of copy abilities. First we have fire in Japanese. Chotto atsui yo kain kougeki. So we have, well, first and foremost, fire, the Japanese reading of fire. Then we have, let's check just again its accent, but it should be accented on the fa as expected. Yes, it is. We've seen it before, but better to check and repeat it. Then we have chotto, which I've mentioned before, which means a little, a bit, slightly. The accent is on cho, so chotto, chotto. It's actually an adverb with to, and as we'll see, there are other adverbs with this doubling of to. The to is simply one of the ways we have seen to make the adverb, but these ones are used always with it, with this also this doubling, chotto in this case. The doubling of the consonants for those who speak languages that don't have it, as a reminder, like English. You have to start pronouncing the consonant, keep it, and then release it. Chotto. Chotto. And yes, a little, a bit, slightly. And so also for a moment, typical chotto matte kudasai, please wait for a moment. So we have a little, then we have atsui, accented, which is an adjective that means depending on the kanji that you use to write it, not in this case since we are writing simply in hiragana, but depending on the kanji, usually you distinguish between hot as in the weather and hot to the touch. In this case, hot to the touch. It's a little hot. And then we have the particle yo. The sentence final particle, which means hey. So in this case, hey, it's a little hot. And then we have a noun, a compound technically between kn. Kn is a Chinese compound, literally between the kanji for fire, which is one that we have already studied, and so yes, it's ka. And then n, which is the one for flame. It's strictly Japanese reading is hono, which we have seen before, accented on the first syllable, hono. Literally ear, as in ear of grain, but in this case of fire, as we have seen also its etymology. So yes, by combining the kanji for fire and flame, we simply get a compound which means flame, blaze. And then we have kogeki. We have definitely seen it before, should be unaccented, but we'll check. It means attack. Yes, unaccented. And so the compound becomes a flame attack. And so the translation is fire. Hey, it's a little hot. Of course, as in an euphemistic sense, because it's quite hot, actually. Hey, slash a flame attack. Okay, we can continue. And then we get this, which is another command we haven't seen before. This is, of course, it first had to get an ability to use it. Serecto botan o osuto chikara o shiteru koto ga dekiru. First we have serecto, which I think we've seen in our previous series, The Legend of Zelda. Is simply select from English. So as the noun, also selection. Of course, we can also add suru, literally to do, to make the verb. So to do a selection, to select. But in this case, it's combined. Well, let's check its accent also. Yes, as expected on the re, so serekuto. As a reminder, the u between e and u, in this case u, between unvoiced consonants is barely heard, if at all, so serekuto. And then we have, since t on its own doesn't exist in Japanese, they would usually add the vowel u, but with the tagyo it becomes tachi, tsu, the to, and so they change it into to instead. Then we have botan, as usual, unaccented, and while it means button, it's a slightly different pronunciation is because it's actually from Portuguese. And so we have the select button. Then the object particle o, also pronounced as wo in careful speech and also singing. Then we have the verb osu. We have seen it several times with these commands, with these buttons, because it means to push a button. In general, to push, to press down. should be unaccented, but we'll check. Yes, unaccented. Also. And then we have the particle to, which when used with a verb can have different meanings, but in this one is one of the ways to make the conditional. The conditional with, so if, when, the conditional with to is quite similar to the zero conditional in English. And so if you do something, something else inevitably happens. In this case, if you press the select button, something happens. The something that happens is the following part of the sentence, starting with chikara. Chikara, not sure, I think we've seen it before, but I'm not completely sure. Maybe in this very series, means strength and also force and other extended meanings, including capability, ability in our case, copyability, should be accented on the last syllable. Yes, so chikara. So a reminder, when it's accented on the last syllable, is identical to unaccented words on its own. But when we add a particle, except for certain particles that modify the accent, we'll see that eventually. But with a particle like, in this case, the object particle o, the accent of words with the last accented on the last syllable can be heard, and so chikarao, chikarao. And so yes, the o is low because the accent falls after the syllable on which the accent, quote unquote, is located. So we have our object marked by the particle o, also postposition as a reminder, just like prepositions in English, but it comes after, and so post. Then we have our verb, steru. Let's check its accent, but it means to throw away, to discard, and so of course by extension to abandon, to resign, and so on, but the fundamental meaning is to throw away, to discard. Let's check its accent. Unaccented, okay, steru. So to discard the ability implied you currently have, as we have seen. Then we add the noun koto, which means thing, as in matter, in contrast with mono, which means thing, as in an object. And we have already studied the kanji of mono, both accented on the last syllable. And so in our case, the matter of the fact of throwing away, discarding the ability. Then we have the subject particle ga. And then we have the main verb, which is the kiru. The kiru means to be able to do, and also extended meanings like be possible, to be good at, to do well. But let's focus on the fundamental one, which is to be able to do. As we have seen, it also replaces suru as its potential form. Instead of making the actual potential form of suru, we replace it with dekiru, since it already has the meaning to be able to do. In this case, it's part of the construction verb in its dictionary form, koto ga dekiru. The fact of doing that verb is possible, is and so yes, we have our translation. If you press the select button, you are able to discard the ability implied you currently have, because of course if we press it without any ability, it does nothing. So let's continue. Okay, I've seen this part. Now we see spark, spark, biribiri shibireru, dengeki kogeki. First we have the Japanese pronunciation of spark, spaku. As a reminder, in Japanese there aren't the R sounds, and so it simply becomes a long A, similar to received pronunciation in British English. Then we have biribiri, which is an onomatopoeia. We'll check its accent. But its meaning, in this case, there are actually several meanings, but this one is feeling an electric shock, since we are talking about the ability spark. Other ones are tearing to pieces, for example, a letter in the example on the dictionary, with a rattle, with a shudder, for example, of windows rattling. But yes, in this case, it's clearly feeling an electric shock. Being an onomatopoeia, well, it should be accented on the first syllable, and it is in this case. There are some exceptions, but that usually is the rule. Biribiri. We could add the particle to make the adverb, but sometimes it's not even added, and it's just like in this one, and it still has the meaning, and it still is an adverb, but the rule would be that you'd, when explicited, its particle to make it an adverb would be to, as usually is the case for onomatopoeias. Then we have the verb shibireru, which means to become numb of a body part, but also maybe because of the tingle, the tingling you feel when a body part becomes numb. It also means to get an electric shock. And of course, there's also the extended meaning from that, to be excited, to be titillated, and so on. But yes, in our case, it's literally to get an electric shock. And so, in this case, get an electric shock, and then we simply have the onomatopoeia that specifies the meaning of the verb, and also Japanese love their onomatopoeias and hearing the sound of actions. And so in this case we have it. If you have ever seen a manga in Japanese, also sometimes in translation, as you can see it as well. There are a lot onomatopoeias are used a lot in Japanese in general, and of course even more so in manga. In this case, it would be, since we have a following noun, the verb, in this case the combination adverb onomatopoeia plus verb, modifies the following noun, and so it would technically be a relative clause that shocks with electricity. And then we have again a compound between dengeki, let's check its accent, but it means electric shock. Literally we have den, which is electricity, and then geki, which means attack, beat. And so electric attack, technically, it's the literally translation. It's, of course, as usual, another Chinese compound. Its accent is, okay, unaccented. By extension, it can also mean blitz, as in a lightning attack. And also sudden and without a warning, and so shocking. But yes, in this case, it's literally an electric shock. And then the rest of the compound, which is kogeki, again, attack. The accent of these compounds with kogeki most likely is on the ko, because that's usually how such compounds are accented, but of course I can't check it, since I seriously doubt a dictionary would include this word, especially the one I'm currently using simply on the internet. And so yes, the translation becomes an electric attack that shocks with electricity. Then let's continue. Then we have ice. Aisu teki o korase futtobase. First we have the Japanese reading of ice, aisu. Here we can see the additional because of course they don't have in Japanese s on its own doesn't exist, so aisu. Accented on the first syllable as expected. Could be either from ice, from English, or even from German, ice. And in this case it's simply ice, but it could be more often than not an abbreviation for ice cream. Ice cream. Then we have teki. We've seen it so many times at this point. We even studied its kanji. It's unaccented, that means opponent, rival, but in this case, enemy. Then we have the object particle o. Then we have the verb korase. From kora, should be from koraseru. And so it's actually the, I think we've seen it before in this very series. It actually comes from koru. Let's check its accent, which means to freeze, as in the intransitive verb, to become frozen. Unaccented, okay. And so to make the transitive form, we actually have to make the causative form of the verb. And so, being a U verb, coda verb, we change the U into A. Then add seru. In this case, only se, but we'll see why in a second. Koraseru. Also unaccented should be, because the original verb is unaccented. Literally, to cause to become frozen. So, to freeze, as in the transitive verb. Then we drop the causative form is ru ichidan verb, and so we can drop the ru to make the continuative form, which is, in this case, it's a form of conjugation. So do that action and the following one. So freeze the enemy, and we have the other verb, futtobase. I think we've seen it before. Yeah, because it's technically a compound verb, even though slightly different from fuku. Actually, should be accented. I think we have seen last time. We'll check just to be sure. So, yes, fuku, which means to blow, and also extend various extended meanings. To blow off the wind. So the intransitive, an intransitive verb, but also transitive, to blow one's breath and so on, and by extension to play a windy instrument. It's slightly different, because instead of changing it into it's a U verb, coda verb, and so we can change the U into I to make the continuative form, and that would be how you'd make a compound verb, as we have just as usual. But in this case, the key becomes a double consonant that for the following part of the component of this compound verb, which is tobasu. Should be an accent, yes. From tobu, technically from tobu. Tobu means to fly, as in the intransitive form of the verb. Also to jump, but with usually different kanji. Let's focus on the fundamental translation, to fly. And so I have the transitive form here, to let fly, to make fly, tobasu. And it's actually an older causative form. We have, as you can see, the vowel changing from U to A, just like in chorus. But then the verb, we simply add su. Most certainly it's the old form of the verb suru, to do. But yes, this way we have the transitive form of the verb, so to make fly. Then being a U verb colon verb, we can change the U into E to make the imperative form. And so we have freeze the enemy and literally to blow and make fly, and so to blow away. Could also be blow away the enemy. Freeze the enemy and blow them away. And so yes, we have the translation. Was about to say that maybe it could also work with while and so on, but in this case, no. And as we'll see, usually that's more of the te form than the continuative form. Okay, so we can continue. We get sword. Okay. Sodo. Ken omottara. Yuki 100 bai. First, we have, of course, the pronunciation, the Japanese pronunciation of sword, sodo. Quite easy. Should be accented on the first one. We've already seen it. Also, the full explanation of the ability. Actually, can't find it on its own, but my guess would be accented. Well, I can quickly check it with an actual dictionary. Just a second. Because yes, while of course I usually use the online dictionary plus my plugin to check the accent, as it's way more convenient. I also have way too many dictionaries and books about Japanese, including some accent dictionaries. In this case, I'm checking the Shinmeikai, the second edition, Nihongo Accent Jiten. Let's check Sodo. Let's see. Okay. We are getting close. Of course, such dictionaries follow the Japanese order, and so Aiueo, Kakikukeko, Sashi, Suse, So, and so I'm in So, and then we have to follow the order of So for the following syllables. So we have a Sodo. Let's see. Unfortunately, okay. Nope, it's not even here. But since, for example, we have soto for sort, I'd say more likely than not, the accent would be sodo on the so. Then we have ken. As we have seen, it's the Japanese, technically Chinese, since it's the Chinese reading of the kanji word for sword, as in especially a large double-edged one, because of course then we have for single-edged ones the Japanese word katana, accented on the last syllable, yes. Japanese single-edged swords. So the sword, then the object particle o. Yes, as we have seen, the word is actually futobasu, and yes, it helps seeing when written in kanji that it uses the kanji for the fu part, the kanji of fuku, to blow. There is also the word you mentioned, which is butobasu, but in that case it's technically make fly with bu, which the bu simply adds the emphasis on the following verb, or indicates that it's done forcefully or violently in this case, and so literally make fly with violence, and so the meanings can also be to send flying, but also to knock down someone. Yes, there are different words. In our case, it's technically less violent, as it's to blow and make fly the enemy. So we simply send the frozen enemy forward. Technically less violent, but you actually defeat other enemies that way, and of course you can say bye-bye to the frozen enemy, so only relatively so. But yes, let's go back to our current sentence. Then we have the verb mottara from motsu. Motsu, we have seen, means to hold, and by extension also to possess, to hold in one's hand, to take, to carry. And in this case it could be both, honestly. When you hold a sword, when you have a sword. And yes, the verb is motsu. So u verb, godan verb. We change the u to make. We have to make its ta form, and so being a verb, godan verb, we have to follow the different rules. Being itsu, luckily it's easy to remember as it becomes a small tsu, so the double consonants, and ta, or ta. And then we add ra to the ta form of the verb to make another form of the conditional if, when. If you hold a sword, or even better, when you hold a sword. So they can, similar to English, these conditional forms in Japanese, most of them can also have a temporal meaning. When you hold a sword, and then we have what happens when you hold a sword. Yuki, which means courage. Let's check its accent. Accented on the first one, yes. Yuki. And then we have hyaku bai. First we have hyaku, which means 100. Accented on the ku, hyaku. And then we have bai. Bai is technically a counter, which means times as much, like the English suffix fold. Also, when used on its own, it means double, twice. So as if two were implied before it, or simply because it was potentially because it was its original meaning, and then it started to get used also for more than twice, 3 times, 4 times. But in the sense of fold. Not times in the sense of occurrences, as we have seen. I think we have seen at least one. There is more than one way to make that, but the most common one is kai, and which is the one we have seen, I think. But yes, in this case, it's in quantity. And so, in our particular case, 100 times the courage. And so the courage is 100 times more when you hold a sword. Okay. Then we can continue. Now we get parasol. Oops, sorry. Sent it by accident a little back. Okay, we have parasol, which we have already seen the full description. First we have, of course, its pronunciation. Parasoru. ちょっと一息お散歩気分. Again, we start, well, of course, we have first the pronunciation, parasoru. This one we have seen and should be accented on the pa, but okay, we should be back, sorry. It literally crashed OBS for a second for some reason, so, but we should be back. We should be back. I'm just checking for a second before continuing with the lesson. Let's see. Let's see if it's back this way. Okay, perfect. It's working as intended. So we can go back to what I was saying. We have Parasoru. So we can check the accent. Just to be sure. Yes, on the pa as expected, as I was mentioning. Then we have again Chotto, a little. Then we have, in this case, most likely considering the following word for a moment, the meaning of Chotto in this case it's for a moment, as in a little time. Then we have Hitoiki. Hito, in this case, again, it's the number 1. It's strictly Japanese pronunciation. We have seen it with the general purpose counter tsu, hitotsu, one of general purpose counter. And we use it because we have then the word iki should be accented on the first one, but we'll check. Yes, it is, which means breath. And it's a strictly Japanese word, and so requires, in this case, it technically becomes kind of a counter, but or simply a compound, but it requires the strictly Japanese number before it. So, one breath. So, one breath, also the time of one breath, and so by extension, a pause, a break, a rest, and then other meanings. So in this case, a pause, a break for a moment. Then we have osampo from, we had the honorific prefix o, and then to make it, in this case, let's say simply more to increase the politeness, but the word itself is sampo, should be unaccented, but we check, and the meaning is to walk, stroll, as in the noun, but of course we can add the verb suru to literally to do a walk, to do a stroll. In this case, go for a walk, go for a stroll. But in our case, we have simply the noun itself, so a walk. Let's check its accent. Yes, an accented, okay. And then we have kibun. We have seen it before when checking parasol, and also kibun, accented on the first one, means feeling, mood. So, a break, a pause for a moment, the feeling of a walk, a stroll. So, implied, most likely there's take a break for a moment, and you have the feeling of going implied for a walk, a stroll. Okay, we can continue. now we get burning, banning, moe agatte no, taiatari kogeki. We've already seen most of these because we have already checked the description of burning, but we quickly go through it again. Banning, of course, first and foremost, the reading. Japanese doesn't have the sound and so it becomes long a, the closest sound, the closest vowel they have. Banning. Then we have a compound verb, moe agatte, from moe agaru. Its components are moeru, should be unaccented, but we'll check, and it means to burn, the intransitive verb. But we'll check. Yes, unaccented, to burn, to get fired up. In this case, literally to burn. Then we have agaru, also unaccented, which means to rise, to go up. The intransitive verb. But in this case, when used as the second part of a component, it has the meaning to complete, to finish. And so, to completely burn. And so the meaning of the compound, reminder that despite the components being both unaccented, the compound is accented, so moe agaru means to flare up, to burst into flames, so to burn literally completely. Then we change it into its te form. Being a U verb, codan verb, we have to follow the rules. And so ending in ru, it becomes double consonant te. Moe agatte. The te form is unaccented when the verb is accented, it's unaccented. While when the verb is accented, the accent falls on the third to last syllable. So in this case, it stays on the ga, moe agatte. In this case, we use that form. It's not typical, but sometimes it happens. To then add the as if it were a noun. And so we add the possessive particle no. And then the following noun, which is modified by it. Taiatari kogeki. Again, a compounded noun. We have seen the first part several times. Taiatari literally means tai is the Chinese reading of the kanji for body. So, body. Then we have atari, should be an accent, yes, unaccented, from ataru, to hit, and also several extended meanings. We change the it's a godan verb, u verb, godan verb, and so we can change the into I to make the noun. So, a hit, as in the noun. And so, literally, a body hit. And so a ramming attack, hurling oneself at someone, somebody. And then we add again kogeki, attack. And so an attack of hurling oneself at someone. while we have to adapt it in English, but literally we have again a possessive of flaring up. Okay, so we've seen this. Okay, now we can see this part. Oki na teki wa kogeki o shite taoreta toki ni suikomu you ni shiyou. We have first and foremost okina, the adjective big. As I mentioned before in previous lessons, we also have the form oki, which is an adjective. This is it's a na form of as if it were a na adjective. And in this form can only be used when preceding and modifying a following noun. The other one can also be used as at the end of a sentence as the main predicate. But the meaning is the same. So big, teki, again enemy. Then we have wa, written as ha, the topic particle. As for big enemies, mini bosses, mid bosses, more often than not, I've seen them called in Kirby games in English. As for big enemies in Japanese, here, kogeki, again attack, then the object particle o, shite, from the verb suru, to do. Then we changed it into its te form. It's one of the completely regular verbs, and so the te form becomes shite. And so literally do an attack. With these Chinese compounds, we can have either the form with the object particle o and then suru, like in this case, or also directly suru. The meaning is the same. To attack, literally here, to do an attack. Since we change it into its te form, to have to connect it to the rest of the sentence. In this case, let's say more, it could simply be and, but more likely than not, the meaning is by attacking, by literally doing an attack. The first part was as for big enemies, by doing an attack, by attacking them implied. Taoreta is a verb from taoreru. Let's check its accent. The meaning is to fall over, to fall down. And also, by extension, to collapse, to be destroyed in a collapse. Other extended meanings. Its accent, so taoreru, we change it into its ta form. It's a ru verb, ichidan verb, and so we simply drop the ru and add the ta. So in this case, it would become taoreta. The accents should go on the third to last syllable, and so goes one backward compared to the dictionary form. We change it into its ta form, and so into the past form of the verb. And then we add to modify the following noun technically, toki. As we have seen, toki should be accented on the last syllable. We'll check. Means time, moment, and so also occasion, case. And so literally, at the occasion of the enemy implied being defeated, literally the enemy falling down, collapsing. But yes, when we add a verb, we have a verb followed by toki. It's one of the forms to say when in English, strictly in a temporal sense. Literally, as we've seen, in the moment of being of collapsing. When the enemy has collapsed, because the main verb is in its past form, the ta form, then we have the particle ni, at the moment, again, at the moment in which the enemy has collapsed. Then we have suikomu. We have seen it before. It's a compound verb. We've seen it because, of course, it's a typical Kirby verb. From su, if I recall correctly, unaccented, which means to breathe in, to inhale, also to smoke, because if you breathe in the smoke of cigarettes and so on, yes, unaccented su. Then we have komu, which on its own means to be crowded, to be packed, but has different and several meanings when used in compounds. In this case, simply to go into, to go in, to put into. So it further emphasizes the breathing in as it comes in by breathing. And komu is accented, and also suikomu, luckily. Then we have yo, which would mean, can mean form, style, design, but also way, especially when with verbs, way to, method of doing something. But in this case, by adding the particle ni, we see that it's required with the following verb to make a special construction with yo. Yo on its own is accented, by the way, so on the yo, because the u can't take the accent. And then, of course, we have the verb suru, to do, but as we see, with a different meaning in this case, with this special construction, yo ni suru. But first, let's see its conjugation. We make, from suru, it's irregular. We change it into shi and add yo to make the volitional form, and so in most cases, including this one, let's. But as for the meaning of yo ni suru, it means to make sure that to try to technically also, but it's more in the sense to see to that, to make sure that literally to do it so that it's as and then the meaning of the main verb, to make it into being in the way of the main verb. And so the translation becomes, full translation becomes, as for big enemies, by attacking them, well, in this case, maybe it's better and, as for big enemies, when at the moment in which you have attacked them and they have collapsed, let's make sure that we inhale them, you inhale them, you as in Kirby, the player playing as Kirby. Make it so that, let's make it so that you inhale them. Let's see. And then we get the ability of that big enemy. Backdrop, backdrop, mutsu no nagewaza de teki o yatsukeru. First we have the pronunciation, backdrop. Would be surprised if I found it. Well, I actually found it. Backdrop from English. And so, as in a belly to back suplex, accented on the do, bakudorop. Then we have the number 6, followed by the general purpose counter tsu. And so we have to use the strictly Japanese pronunciation of 6, which is mu in this case, with a small tsu. And so mutsu. Mutsu. And should be accented on the tsu if I recall correctly. Yes, mutsu. Then we add the possessive particle no to make quote-unquote an adjective, but simply to modify the following noun. So 6. Then we have nagewaza, a compound noun from a verb, nageru. Let's check its accent, which means to throw. And other extended meanings, but the fundamental one is to throw, accented, so nageru. Then it's a ru ichidan verb, and so we can drop the ru to make the noun. A throw. And then we can add the other noun, waza. Should be accented on the last syllable. Yes, it is. Which means technique, art, skill, move. And so, literally, nagewaza. Keep in mind that, unfortunately, it it becomes unaccented. Could be simply because being accented on the last syllable was a, and sounding on its own, when on its own, the same as if it were unaccented, then the compound became as such, or it's because it's a compound of this kind. Could be both. But yes, literally throwing technique. So 6 throwing techniques. Then we have the particle de, which indicates the means. And so with 6 throwing techniques. Teki, again enemy. The object particle o. Yatsukeru. It's technically, again, a compound verb. Another one with not constructed as usual, just like futtobasu and also buttobasu mentioned in chat. First, we have the verb yaru, which has several meanings, but the fundamental one is to do. So just like suru, but yaru is, and yes, it's unaccented also, is a colloquial word. Also has several other meanings, but we won't focus on them now. Including to do, as in only on this one, which means to do, as in to harm, to injure. And then we have skeru. Well, we technically would change its yaru. We usually would change it's a verb, Kodan verb, so we would usually change it into ri to make the noun, or also simply the continuative form used to make compound verbs, but in this case it then becomes a small tsu, doubling the following consonant. And then we add tsukeru, which means is accented and means to attach, to join, and other extended meanings, but in this case it's this one, because literally it would mean most likely to apply, to attach, to join, to add harm, because the meaning of yatsukeru, also accented luckily, means to beat, to attack an enemy. And so yes, we have our verb. And the sentence becomes attack the enemy, literally apply harm, injure to the enemy, with 6 throwing techniques. And we can see them now in the video. There's throwing techniques. And last but not least, we can see this sentence. Or better, there are 2. Chikara wa mada mada takusan aru yo. Chikara, again, force, strength, accented on the last syllable. So in this case, we can then see it with the following wa, which is low. But in also capability, ability, so abilities, copy abilities. Then we have the particle wa, the topic particle. And so as for abilities, mada mada, which comes from mada, which means still, yet, as in not yet with a negative verb, and so on. Here we have it doubled, accented on the first mada mada, and the meaning is still the same, so still, much more, not yet with the negative, and it's simply more emphatic than a single mada, so the doubling is to add emphasis. It's interesting that when used with the copula da in the plain speech, des in te nego, the polite speech, it means it is not there yet, and it's a typical expression of humbleness, to say, for example, that you aren't still good at, for example, speaking Japanese, or similar things, even though potentially you might be, but it's polite to say that you are not there yet. So in this case, it means much more. As for copy abilities, much more. Then we have another adverb, taksan, accented on the sa, so taksan, and it means a lot, plenty, many, a large number. You usually find it right before the verb, like in this case. Main verb, which is aru, as we have seen before in the previous series, for sure, maybe also this one. Aru means to be, in the sense of to exist. Just like the verb iru, aru is accented. Iru shouldn't be, should be unaccented, but we'll check. Also means to be in the sense to exist, but the difference is that aru is used with inanimate things, so objects, like in this case, abilities. Iru is used for animate ones, and so people and animals. And then, of course, we have the usual yo, you know, hey. And so this first part means, as for abilities, there are still many more, you know. Then we have ironna, which is an abbreviated form from iroiro, iroirona in this case, with the added na, because it's a na adjective. Iroiro, and also iroirona, ironna, both unaccented, means various. So various modifies, precedes and modifies the following noun, which is waza, again, techniques, skills. Then the object particle o. Then we have the verb tameste, from tamesu. Let's check its accent, but it means to test, to try out. Yes, accented, okay. We change it into its te form. Being a U verb colon verb, we have to follow the rules. So we had, lucky it's in su, so we simply change it into she and add the te. Tameste. We have to make the te form to then add the verb, the auxiliary verb miru, usually to see, but in this case it means to try, literally to test and see what happens, what the result is, and so to try out. We change also the miru into its te form. Being a ru verb, it's done verb, we drop the ru and add the te. In this case, we add the te form to make technically the polite imperative. So technically by adding, as we have seen before, by adding kudasai, but as a shortened form, you can simply straight up use the te form to make the polite imperative, just like in this case. Please try. And then, last but not least, we have the sentence final particle ne. In this case, will you? Also kind of a please, and simply to make a request, technically an informal request. And yes, we don't have kudasai as it should be when we write it, we make the extended form. But of course, it's it's polite and it's not as blunt as the actual imperative form in the plain speech. So for the translation, it becomes try, please try, please try out and see literally what the result is. So please try out, please test various techniques. Okay, will you? And so we have seen how it ends. Fortunately, we can see it in this part. In the following one, we see that, okay, yes, there was also this final part. So we check it out. Sore de wa. First we have sore, that, as in the demonstrative pronoun. Against, again, we have the different distances. So would usually be far from the speaker, close to the listener, but is also used as the most common way to say that when referring to something not right there. And so that, then we have de wa, which the de could be with, or even better, de as in the te form of the copula, da, des, becomes de. And so, being that, the case implied. And then we add the topic particle wa. And so, literally, either as for with that, or even better, I'd say, as for being that the case, And so, sore de wa should be accented on the de because sore is unaccented. And when two particles like these are combined with a previous, an accented word before it, it's accented on the first particle. So, sore de wa. And so the meaning, we have seen the literal translation as for that being the case. And so it becomes a conjunction, so then. So, game, from English game, of course, and is accented on the ge, game. Then we have the possessive particle no. Then we have naka, which means middle, inside, means inside, interior, also by extension among, within, middle, center, and similar extended meanings, but the fundamental one is inside. In this case, inside of the game, within the game, because then we add the particle de, which in this case means the location where an action happens. As a reminder, there are two different particles for location at where the action of the verb happens. Therefore, most verbs, ni for verbs of existence, like we have seen aru and iru. So at the inside of the game, literally, within the game, so within the game, and then we have the verb oai shimashou. We have the honorific prefix o, in this case required, as we'll see by this structure. We have the verb au, which means to meet, accented, to encounter also, with usually a different kanji, and also by extension it means to have an accident, to have a bad experience, literally to encounter an accident, to encounter a bad experience. But in our case, it's literally its original meaning, fundamental meaning, to meet. We change it, it's a u verb, codan verb, so we change it into its i, the u into i, to make the continuative form. In this case, and it's noun, meeting. And then we have the verb suru. So literally to do a meeting. But this structure, honorific prefix o, the continuative form of a verb plus suru, is a way to make the humble form of that verb. Then, in our case, we change suru into its continuative form, and so being irregular, it becomes she. And that's required to add the masho, in this case. We have seen before mas, masta, mas, the present or also future. Masta, the past, we are in the polite register, the te nego. now we see masho, which is the volitional form in the polite register. And as usual, its most common meaning, which is let's. Okay. So the translation becomes so, literally, as for that being the case, so, literally, at the middle, inside the inside of the game, within the game, let's meet. So let's meet within the game in a humble form of the verb. And yes, now Kirby departs, and then it starts the part that explains the story, but of course we are not seeing that. We've already took most of the stream with this part. So we'll actually, we're not taking a break, of course. I simply drink some water while we open the game and start it, as we actually have some things to see even before that. Okay, let's start the game. Drink some water, of course, at least. Yeah, now it starts again the intro with finally finished. But of course, apart from the story part, but we are seeing that another time. First, we have to see this, the new title, because our percentage is higher compared to before. Harukaze no Musuko. First we have technically a compound, Harukaze. We check the accent of course. As usual, both the compound and its components. Haru means spring, as in the season, and is accented on the first syllable. Haru. Spring, springtime, of course. There are technically other meanings, but the fundamental one is spring. Then we have kaze, should be an accented, but I'll check, which means wind. Yes, an accented. Also other accented meanings, but we won't see them for now. And so the compound, which becomes accented on the ru, haru, kaze. And we can see here one of the cases I mentioned with the accent on the at the end of the first part of the compound. Haru, kaze means spring, literally spring wind, and so spring breeze. Then of course the possessive particle no of the spring breeze, and then the word musuko. Musuko. Again, the u in of su is between unvoiced consonants, and so is barely heard if at all. Musuko should be accent, maybe an accent. We will check. Yes, an accented actually, and means son. So the translation becomes son of the spring breeze. This is our title. Just to see it, I have still it open on the Kirby. And in English it was localized as Son of Wind. Unfortunately, the spring part of the spring wind of spring was lost, but honestly closer this time than the last one. Okay, we can finally start the game. Although actually, as I mentioned before, we have first and foremost an ability to check, so at the museum we try to be quick about it so that we can at least tackle one stage this time. The ability in question is Laser. Defeated the fire enemy with it. As you can see, the pronunciation in Japanese is Reeza. Let's check its accent, but it should be the same as in English. Yes, on the re, so Reeza. And then we have the description itself. Reeza Kosen o Hasha Suru Zo. Again, we have Reeza, laser. Then we have Kosen, which is technically a Chinese compound between light, as in illumination, and then sen, which means line, and so also ray, beam, and so literally it would be light ray, beam, and so laser beam. The object particle O. Then we have Hasha. We have seen it before. It's another Chinese compound with a kanji, which means departure, and also emit, start from, and so on. The other one, which is which means to shoot. To shoot, for example, of arrows, and so on. And so the compound becomes the firing of the launching, the shooting of something. In our case, of laser beam. It's a noun, and so a Chinese compound, and so we can add the verb suru, literally to do the firing, and so to fire a laser beam. And last but not least, we have the sentence final particle zo, which adds force or indicates a command. In this case, could be honestly both. It's a male term or language. Fire a laser beam. Then we have sakamichi o tsukaeba hansha mo dekiru. We have first and foremost compound sakamichi, from saka. Let's check its accent, which means slope. Okay, accented on the last one, saka was right. And then michi, unaccented, this one, which means road, path, route, way. So literally a slope road, so a hill road. the accent, yeah, it's accented again on the last part of the first part of the compound, so sakamichi. Sakamichi. So we have then the object particle o, then the verb tsukaeba from tsukau. We have seen it several times before. Should be unaccented, means to use. Yes, it's unaccented. We change it's a u verb colon verb, so we can change it into the u into e. To then add the ba, which is one of the way to make the conditional. If, when, again also in a temporal meaning sometimes. In this case I'd say if. Often it can be similar to the first conditional in English. If you do something, something else will happen. But no, of course not always, because it isn't strictly one-to-one. But in this case, if you use literally a hill road, a slope, we could simply say, even though technically they are hill roads, because they're the roads you go through as Kirby, and they're hills, slopes. Then we have Hansha, another Chinese compound. Sha is the same we have seen before, above, of to shoot. And then we have Han before it, which is a prefix, which means anti, the opposite. In this particular case, it would be the opposite, shooting, and so actually reflection, because in our case the shot gets reflected. Then we have the inclusive particle mo, also, and then we add the kiru. In this case it's again the translation is to be able to do, and it straight up replaces suru as its potential form, and so the translation becomes if you use a hill road, literally a slope, you can even reflect, implied, the laser beam. Then we have Umai tsukai michio mitsuke daso. First we have the adjective umai. Should be accented, but we'll check. Yes, accented, which means skillful. Then we have another compound noun, tsukai michi. From tsukai, again from tsukau, to use, so usage. Also on its own other meanings, but in our case it doesn't matter, it's fundamental one. And then we add again michi, road, path, street, route, way. In our case, way in a figurative meaning, with a figurative meaning. Way to use something implied, way to use literally. And so, by extension, the purpose, utility. And then we add the object particle o. And last but not least, we have the verb, a compound verb. Mitsuke da so, from mitsukeru. Technically, a further compound verb from miru, to see, to watch. Then again, tsukeru, to attach, to join, to add. So literally, to see and attach. But as a whole, it becomes mitsukeru, the verb to find, to discover, to come across. Also, by the way, it's unaccented, despite both verbs being accented on their own. So, be careful, it's keru. And then we add dasu, which means to take out, to put out, and so on. But as when used as the second part of a compound verb, it can mean out, as in, for example, we have seen to jump out. I think we have seen that one with Tobidasu also in game. But also with the extended meaning, to begin, to start, to burst into, even better, because it's usually used with unintentional verbs, but we'll see that in, also later. So the translation becomes, well, of course, sorry. Last but not least, we have to change the mitsukedasu. Let's see if I can also the accent of it, even though I doubt it. Okay, I actually found it. Okay, so actually in this case it could technically be with simply the out meaning, in the sense to find out, just like in English. And its accent, it's accented in this case, so actually just like dasu on its own. It's u verb, godan verb, so we can change the u into o, and then add a u, so long o, to make the volitional form let's. Again, the most common usage. So the translation becomes a good way to use, skillful in this case, as can be simply translated as good. A good way to use. We can keep it the way it is, also in English. A good purpose. Let's find out. A good purpose. A good way to use it, literally. Okay, we have seen the translation of this, the description. So we'll keep in laser. and at least tackle one stage. Unfortunately, I doubt we can do more tonight, but at least we have finished that part of the intro, so only the story is left. Again, sorry if we aren't playing as much of the game itself for now, but the further we go into the game, let's see if I can, yeah, no, I wasn't able to get back our ability. The further we go into the game, the less, of course, new writings we find, and so we'll go way faster then. And of course, getting rid of okay, we have a spark. I'm not sure we have seen it before. I'll check it in a second. Let's see. Well, we have seen it, of course, in the ability intro. But I don't think we have seen it on its own, like this. Let me check a second. Yeah, no, I don't think so. And also it sounds, some parts sound new to me in Japanese. But I'll quickly check just to be sure. Yeah, no. Let's see. Nope. Let's see these times, but yeah, no, I'm pretty sure we haven't actually seen it, but we are already checking out. Let's do it well. Okay, no, we haven't seen it. So we have to check this, also this one. Then, of course, we'll proceed with the level. First, it's pronunciation. Spark, we've already seen it. Karada. Again, it's the strictly Japanese word for body. Should be unaccented, but we check it again. Yes, unaccented. Then we have kara, from the body. Then we have technically a compound, hibana, accented, which comes from hi, accented in this case because it's hi as in fire, not hi as in sun, or even better now in contemporary Japanese, day. So fire. And then we have hana, here ba with the duck 10, simply because it's a compound that can happen. A compound with the second part being strictly Japanese. Hana, accented on the last syllable, on the na, hana, means flower. So literally fire, flower, flower of fire. And it's a way to say spark. That's how we say spark. Literally flower of fire. Then we have the object particle o. Then we have the verb hanatsu, here in its form. Hanatsu is the transitive verb, accented, which means also to fire, of gun, arrows, and so on, to shoot, but also to hit, for example, a baseball. But its fundamental meaning, from from which also that one comes, is to release, to set free, to let loose. And so also by extension to emit, for example, a light, or in our case, a spark. Sparks, plural, more likely than not. We change it into its te form, being into verb, code verb. Into we change, luckily it's easy, so we have to follow the rules, but it's easy. It's small two, doubling the consonant, and then te, hanatte. In this case, let's say with the meaning by emitting, by releasing sparks from the body. Teki, again, enemy, the object particle o. And then again we see kogeki, unaccented, as we have seen before. We had the verb suru to make the verb, kogeki to attack. Well, the noun itself, attack, assault, and so on. And so with suru, literally to do an attack, to attack. And then last but not least, again, so to add force, or to make it a command. Honestly, it could be both in this case. So attack the enemy by releasing sparks from the body. Then we have chikazuite kita te. Well, let's read it first. Chikazuite kita teki wa minna shibire sasechae. First we have chikazuite kita from chikazuku. From first, chika, in compounds found as chika, but on its own as chikai, which is the adjective, which means near, close, also close in time, and other standard meanings, accented. Then we had tsuku, from tsuku, and we had the duck 10 for the same reason, because it's a compound, and that's why we have to write it with tsu with the daku 10. Again, tsuku, just like tsukeru, but this is the intransitive form, means to attach, to get attached, to join, and so on. So near, attach, to attach, close, the meaning of chikazuku, luckily accented just like tsuku, means to approach, to draw near, to get close. We change it into its te form, being a verb, code and verb, we have to follow the rules. Being in ku means that it becomes I te. The step was ki te, but then for a simple pronunciation it became ite. Chikazuite. Then we had the verb kuru, to come, accented. In this case, we had to put the previous verb into its te form to add the kuru. In this case, it indicates simply the direction in which one draws close, as in someone else draws close to Kirby. Then we change it into its ta form. identical to the te form, so we have but kuru is the other completely irregular verb, and so its ta form becomes, we change the, drop the ru, change the ku into ki, and add ta, kita. Technically accented on the ki, but then because the e is barely heard if at all, usually the accent goes on the ta. And then this verb modifies the following noun. Technically is a relative clause. Noun which is teki, again enemy, and with the topic particle wa. As for the enemy that got clause, as the ta form is the past form. As for the enemies, because we'll see in a second, as for the enemies that got close to Kirby, implied because of the direction of the verb kuru, to come, minna means everyone, everybody, all. Also pronounced as mina. Minna is less formal and more emphatic than mina, without the additional n. But the meaning is the same, so everyone, all the enemies. Then we have the verb shibire sasechae, from shibireru, as we have already seen, in this case, to shock. Accented. Then we drop, it's a ru verb, it's done verb, so we drop the ru and add sa se ru to make the causative form. So to make the enemies get shocked, then we further change it into its te form. You can't see it in this form, but it's because of a it's abbreviated, as we'll see in a second. Being the causative form is also a ru verb, it's done verb, and so we drop the ru and add the te simply. And then we technically would add shimau, unaccented, we have seen it before, means to finish, to stop, to end, also extended meanings. And so when added, when following the te form of a verb, it means to finish, to do completely the action of that verb. Then we change it, it's a u verb, codan verb, so we can change the u into e to make the imperative form. And then it gets, there's the contraction, te shi mau, te shi, shi, shimau, and then the shima, sa, chau, and so chae. So the translation becomes, as for the enemies that got close, make them all get shocked. So we got the translation of Spark, of the actual description. Oops, I immediately lost it, of course. Okay, we technically have a mini boss there. know that's the case. But since we are, well, of course we have to defeat the mini-boss, but we won't check its ability for now. We'll see it eventually. Actually, these mini-bosses mini-bosses, mid-bosses show up again in this game, of course. So we'll check it the next time. Here we get laser because it actually is kind of a tutorial to show that yes, when you immediately get it, a laser beam gets shot, and it shows it that these are the quote-unquote hill roads, and so the laser beam goes up, is reflected upwards. Okay, let's check this room quickly. Okay, simply we got some enemies. Yeah, and there it wanted to have us to have a steel laser to defeat that enemy with the hill road, quote unquote, the slope. Let's avoid the enemies, especially the cannon which we cannot defeat. Everyone else. Funnily enough, we end with laser, which is the one we got from the museum and started this with, again, goal, the bottom right, on the bottom right corner. Okay, so we have completed stage 4. Next time we have this. Just open a second. Oh yes, we actually have some kanji, so we'll have to check them. Actually capture it, even though we'll see it again. Well, we're not doing that for now. I'm getting back in the game just to check if it has saved. Should have. Yes. End of stage 4 when we have completed it. So we'll first study those kanji of this, well, the arena, do that arena, and then tackle stage 5 and go from there. Okay, let's close the game. Before ending the stream, well, on Wednesday, as usual, we'll continue this series at the usual hour, but on the same day earlier, at 3 p.m. for me, and so at the same hour as Sunday streams currently, we'll watch the Kirby and Riders Direct. Again, unfortunately, we can't watch it live because of my technical limitations, as we have seen also in this case that we had an issue with my computer of some kind, with OBS. And so one day later, as hopefully it will have been added also to the news section of Switch Online, of Switch 2, sorry, Switch and Switch 2. And so yes, on Wednesday we'll first watch that. It will be my reaction to the Japanese version, of course. I'll watch the Italian one on my own live when it comes out, but we'll watch and I react to the Japanese one, and then at the usual hour we continue to learn Japanese with Kirby's Adventure. Okay, see you next time.